I don't know how you feel, but sometimes I feel like a failure. I'm in my last year in my 30s. That means I'm nearly 40 years old and I haven't reached six figures yet like so many people on YouTube or Etsy or online in general. It definitely looks like there are a lot of people who make a lot of money online and they are way younger than me. So sometimes I think, what have I done all those years? Why am I not rich? I think it took me quite a while to figure things out. And to be honest, you also have to look back when I was in my 20s. I kind of grew up without the internet in my teenage years and without a smartphone as a young adult. Times have really changed now. Here's a little story, probably no one cares about, but it might be your story too. I actually remember that I moved to London, UK. I'm originally from Germany, but at the time I was studying theater, film and media in Vienna, Austria, and I decided to move to London, although my English was really not that great. I started an internship at a creative agency and I remember that I was sitting at my desk and my boss was walking by and then turned around, went to my desk, pointed at my phone and asked me, "What is that?" And I was like, that is my phone. And it was not a smartphone. It was a normal phone where you can just call and text someone. Do you remember those times? He literally started to laugh and I felt pretty embarrassed. Shortly after, I did buy my first smartphone, which was actually an iPhone. So yeah, the beginning of my time in London was a bit hard. I could barely speak English and I was laughed at because of my phone. So I'm just telling you that because by the time I got a smartphone, I was 27 years old. And I don't think at the time I knew what YouTube was, although it already existed. And my whole mindset was about, I have to get a job and work my way up the career ladder. I never ever thought, I could start my own business or I could work online by myself, for myself. I'm telling you that also because I hope you maybe can relate. Maybe you are my age or you are even older. The times were just different than what it is now. And to be honest, I don't want to feel like a failure. I had a lot of experiences, amazing experience, and I think those experiences made me the human I am today. I actually had a lot of fun in my 20s. I did start working in a social media agency in London. Then I met my partner, so I was 27. And shortly after, we moved to Singapore together. I worked in an advertising agency there. It was a bit of a culture shock for me there, but we traveled a lot around Southeast Asia. I worked a lot there and I learned a ton. And then I actually came back to London and started working in an advertising agency there. Then I decided to actually go freelance. So yeah, I remember slowly I just couldn't see myself working in a company. All these rules, all this slow progress in terms of like pay and status and titles, it just wasn't really for me, I thought at the time. So I quit and I went freelance. I went freelance as a social media manager, pretty much trying to get my own clients. And again, it was a phase of my life which I learned a lot, but I didn't make a ton of money. I even started my own business at the time, which was an e-commerce business. I kind of wanted to sell sustainable, green design items for your home. Again, I learned so much. I had actually a team of interns, which I really enjoyed working with and managing. But you probably guessed it, this business failed, or let's say I basically didn't persevere and I just stopped running the business. The reason was my first pregnancy, my first daughter. But you can find any reason if you don't really want to do it anymore or if you don't want to persevere. If I look back, I think I didn't really make a plan for where I want to be at certain times and how I actually really make money in the long term. So that's why it didn't really work out for me. So yeah, it was the beginning of my 30s. I had my first child. Then your priorities change a little bit and you really concentrate on looking after a newborn and a baby for a while. But then also the pandemic hit after 1.5 years. I think my daughter was 1.5 years old. And I think I started slowly to be aware of things, although I'm sure it started way earlier, but more subconsciously. But during the pandemic, I was actually really interested in personal finance. business. I read a ton of books about personal finance, you know, making money, saving money, and investing money. And then I actually started my own YouTube channel on that topic. I think I ran this YouTube channel for about a year, and I probably published around 1 or 2 videos per week. So I was quite consistent with my content, but it didn't really hit off after a year. At that time, I still haven't managed to hit those 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. And then actually we decided as a family to move from London, UK to Stockholm, Sweden. And then my personal finance content became living in Sweden content. And actually just in a few weeks, I hit my 1,000 subscribers and my 4,000 watch hours, and I was monetized on YouTube. So I think things came to me quite slowly, it feels, but at the same time, there's such a misconception about like really fast success and growth. Believe me, I've watched a lot of YouTube videos and admire those people who really build something, but I think sometimes you don't know the whole truth, how much they actually worked on that or maybe other things before, how many times they actually failed and it didn't work out, but they still put in the hours and they still learned a ton of things about it. I think the whole making money online thing is actually quite complex, despite all those videos telling you how much money you can easily make online. I think it's very important that we try to find our own pace and that not everyone can succeed within 6 months or 1 year or 2 years. I actually listened to Mel Robbins' podcast the other day, and she is really an advocate of like things need time. If you really want to improve and be successful, it can take sometimes years, a decade, or even longer. And to finish my story, I became pregnant again with my second child, and that was when we just moved to Sweden, which is about 2.5 years ago. And I think I mentioned these pregnancies and having children because there is a different dynamic to having children. And yes, there are sometimes exceptions. There are moms out there and they make a lot of money, maybe in a short period of time. Again, how true is that? We don't know. But a lot of people I see, especially on YouTube, telling their success story are younger people who don't have children yet, who just have more time. And it's not only about the time, it's just the priorities or the space you have in your head sometimes about things. I also read books about child psychology, you know, because that's very important how I raise my children. So I don't only concentrate on making money online all the time. But yeah, time is a bit of a factor. I can't work all the time. I mean, probably I shouldn't, but you know, the more time you spend on something, the more you're probably able to improve. And I just have to factor that in all I'm doing. So now I feel I'm so much more aware and conscious about what is out there and how to make money. That doesn't make it easier when you're actually putting the steps in place to get there. You know, it's still a ton of work, even if you know so much more how to get there. And now I'm building several income streams. I made a video about my several income streams if you want to check it out. But yeah, building all these income streams is a lot of time, a lot of focus, a lot of concentration. And in between, I have all these thoughts about failure and my age and like where could have been maybe 10 years before. Although in this video, I explained a little bit my whole life. It's not an excuse. It's just the way I was thinking in my 20s and my early 30s, what priorities I set. And now here I am today. And the most important thing for me is that I actually stay consistent, that I persevere, and that I'm patient. I think it's absolutely okay if I work the next 5 years really hard on my business and then I will be rich. Being financially independent with 45 is still pretty young, and it is like 20 years earlier than the retirement, right? So wherever you are right now, if you are in your 30s, 40s, 50s, but even in your 60s, you know, these days we can live until we are 80 and 90. So even if you're 60, you have another 20, 30 years. What do you want to do in that time? I mean, if you see it from that perspective, we have a lot of time left. So yeah, I just wanted to make this video as a reminder to myself and to others that age is not important and that you shouldn't be influenced by all these young people making 6 figures. I try not to. I try to stay true to myself and just acknowledge what I have experienced so far, that every so-called failure or experience is what I needed to be where I am right now. And it will also be important in 5 years and in 10 years and so on. So let me know in the comments down below who you are, where you are at, and what your goals are. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!